Welcome back. You're watching The Globe. Now, over 100 economists and academics have called on international lenders to write off a significant portion of loans taken by Zambia. This in the lead up to the financial restructuring negotiations involving Chinese, French and British governments. The experts say that only a major debt write-off could save the Zambian economy.
In a letter to the creditors' negotiating committee, Debt Justice requested the waiver of debt interest payments for Zambia until 2023. The IMF recently approved a $1.3 billion loan to Zambia following the nation's default on a $17.3 billion loan due to a collapse of public finances during the COVID-19 pandemic. Multinational investment company BlackRock is one of the largest owners of Zambian bonds, holding $220 million worth. Some of the bonds have lost half their value. Debt Justice says BlackRock likely bought the bonds at rock-bottom prices when it was evident the situation in the Zambian economy was dire and that it could make 110% profit if debt interest payments are paid in full. It says because of the high interest rates and the fact that Zambia's bonds have been trading at well below face value since 2018, many bondholders stand to make huge profits at the expense of both Zambian citizens and creditor countries if paid at face value. Debt Justice has reiterated the importance that BlackRock and other bondholders agree to fully engage in large-scale debt restructuring. Last year, Chad and Ethiopia applied for debt relief under the G20's Common Framework, and Sri Lanka and Bangladesh sought help from the IMF under schemes to support countries devastated by the climate crisis. Zambia's debt soared as it sought to fund infrastructure projects. It has cut health and social care spending by a fifth in an attempt to balance its budget. 46% of Zambia's external debt is owed to private lenders, 30% to China and other governments, and 18% to multilateral institutions.
Well, we're now joined by Zambian Economist, our regular contributor, Yusuf Dodia. Yusuf, great to talk to you as always. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you, Peter.
All right. The last time we spoke, Zambia had just been awarded a chunk of cash by the IMF, which is more debt. And now we're hearing the story that we should be writing off Zambian debt. What's your take? Because there are consequences to write-offs, aren't there?
Absolutely. Quite clearly, the amount of money that has been allocated by the IMF under the staff level agreement is only $1.3 billion to be disbursed over 3 years. That's about $400 million per year. And clearly this money is in no way near the kind of money that Zambia needs in order to service its debt. If you look at the Zambian budget for 2022, 78 billion kwacha was allocated towards debt servicing. 78 billion kwacha translates to $5.2 billion just for this year, 2022. So when you see that and benchmark it against the $400 million coming from the IMF per year, it's obviously a very small amount compared to the debt servicing that we ought to be making. So the IMF money was really to help Zambia restructure, to protect the vulnerable, and to invest in governance systems such as passing bills through parliament, supporting that, improving the Anti-Corruption Commission, the Drug Enforcement Agency, the Financial Intelligence Center, and of course the police service. And the idea is to make law enforcement work efficiently so that we can stamp out corruption. And I think this is where the IMF comes and stops. But this did not touch the $17 billion debt that we owe to foreign creditors and the $13 billion we owe to domestic creditors. So we have a loan portfolio totaling to about $30 billion. And this is where these consultants and academics are concerned about, because they're saying, yes, we can take the small money from the IMF, get the IMF on our side as some kind of hand holders, but it in no way helps to sort out the outstanding debt. So quite clearly, a new formula has to be put together in order to tackle the debt. And of course, one of it is to look at debt cancellation, where we have bilateral debts with countries like China, India, South Africa, the United States, the UK, France. There's a possibility that that debt could be written off by these governments. Where there's commercial debt, the $3 billion debt that we have in the so-called Eurobonds, those actually cannot be written off. And I think what's happening is these debts are being sold. You know, the bonds are being offloaded onto other people that will take the bonds at a lower price. So bondholders might be cutting their losses and just getting rid of the bonds to financial companies that buy these bonds, and then they work with the international community to try to strengthen Zambia's economy so that the debt can...
All right, it looks like we may have lost Yusuf Dodia there. He was talking to us about the massive debt issue and question that Zambia is facing. On the one hand, it's got huge amount of debt that it owes to both commercial and state lenders like China. And the dilemma that they have is, do they cancel it? Do they get it cancelled? At the same time, they've managed to get some funding from institutions like the IMF, but the amount that they're getting there is very small. And this is a country, during the past administration, there was massive spending that the previous administration undertook in the country. And now this has caught up with the country. And so for the 100 economists, we believe, have said that the best way for Zambia's economy to recover is to see some form of debt cancellation. But let's go back to Yusuf and continue with our conversation now. So, Yusuf, I know that if I go to the bank, one of the questions they ask me is, have you ever had debt cancelled? Have you ever had your debts written off? Are there consequences for debt cancellation?
No.
Hello, Yusuf? Yusuf, you need to unmute. Hello, Yusuf, can you hear me? All right, we're struggling to get Yusuf there. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, hopefully we'll be able to carry on with that conversation. Otherwise, we'll carry on